guys, it's Steffi from the Novelty Corner and I'm here to do my weekly wrap up for the week of the 14th of January to the 21st of January. So this week I read a total of 10 books, 2 of which were novellas, for a total of 3,095 pages. The first 2 books that I read this month were Insurgent and Allegiant from the Divergent series by Veronica Roth. As these are the second and third books in a series, I won't go too much into them, even though I know it's well past the time for spoilers being an issue with this book because pretty much everyone knows what happens in them. However, one of my goals this year was to finish this series, so I have now done that and I really enjoyed it. Even Allegiant, I knew it was going to happen before going into it. I did think it was a bit strange that Veronica Roth did change her writing style for the last book and had multiple point of view chapters for the last book. However, given the circumstances, that actually made sense. And by the end of it, I was actually quite happy for those chapters and to get a different perspective on what was going on in the story. Overall, I gave them both 4 out of 5 stars. They were fun, they were fast-paced. I enjoyed them. Not much more I can say about it. Then I read The Time Machine by H.G. Wells, which again was one of my New Year's resolutions books to read this year. It is a very short story and it is science fiction. It is a classic, and predictably, I had a really hard time getting into this book because it was a classic. I don't know what it is with me in classics. Maybe it's in my head, and when I start reading them, I get myself into a bad place and I really struggle with them. I did enjoy the last part of the book, but it did take me until the last 20 pages or so, and this is only a 100-page story, to actually get into the flow of the writing. Maybe I need to read more classics, or maybe I just need to stop, I don't know. But it was quite good and I did enjoy it. And I did like the little bit of social commentary on humans and humanity. And overall, I'm glad that I read it. I did give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. It probably deserves more than that, but I really did struggle to read this tiny little book. Next, I read the novella Destroy Me by Tahereh Mafi, which is book 1.5 in the Shadow Me series and is from Warner's perspective. And I have to tell you guys, I actually now understand why people like Warner. The poor little broken puppy thing that he is. I'm really excited to read the second book now because I wasn't the biggest fan of Shadow Me at all. I found it really difficult to like Juliet's character. However, I am planning on reading the rest of the series in the very near future. It was just really nice to get the insight of this character who was our villain in the first book, and to see that, yes, he's done some really terrible things and we're not excusing any of that, but it was interesting to see his thought process and exactly why he might have done those things. And I think this probably is really setting up his character for the rest of the series. So I think it probably paid off to read everything in order. I gave Destroy Me 5 out of 5 stars. I did really enjoy it. Then I read Sacrifice by Hanna Winter. This was a book sent to me by Alan and Unwin for review, so thank you very much to them. This is a crime thriller novel. It again is a book that has been translated into English from the original German. It is the first book in the Lena Peters series, and it follows a criminal profiler who has been recently assigned to a serial killer case following a killer who kidnaps and mutilates and kills women. It's not a terribly long story, and I think in a lot of ways that made some of the plot seem quite rushed. We're sort of thrown headlong into meeting Lena Peters, who is the protagonist of this story. I think being a first book set up for a series, we're given a lot of information about Lena right up front, and then throughout the books we just get whacked with huge chunks of things that she knows how to do and all that sort of thing, which is fine. I don't mind that. I think, in books, characters can have any skill set that you want them to. That's the point of a story. It's a story. But at times it did sort of come out and whack you in the face and draw you out of the story a little bit. Overall, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It wasn't a bad read. I'll probably try and pick up the next book in the series when it's translated, just to see how the second book continues the story and whether the narrative is a little bit tighter in follow-up books. But overall, if you're just looking for a mystery, crime, thriller read, this one's quick and easy. The next book that I read will come as no surprise. It was A Gathering of Shadows by V.E. Schwab. After my gush last week, you guys had to know that it wasn't going to be a long time coming before I found this book and read it and just loved it. This book was better than the first one. I love the first one. Like, seriously, I love the first book. I absolutely adore it. This one has a slightly different tone in that it is definitely more character focused, and it is definitely on developing a whole series of characters, and we get more different character point of view chapters, which was really fantastic because not only do we get Kel and Lila's perspectives, but we get Rye's perspective. My precious babies. That's all I can say. I was devastated at the end of this book, and I obviously can't talk about it because it's the second book in a series. Definitely pick this up. If you haven't read this series and you like fantasy, this is a great way to jump into it, because while it's an adult fantasy book, it's not so far removed from young adult that it's inaccessible, and it's not super high fantasy either, and that's what I struggle with. This is just so easy to read, and V. Schwab's writing style is beautiful. Character development in this is great. Lila, I still love her. She's a prickly little thing, and I think it's great. Cal is one of my new favourite characters. Rye is adorable and just having to deal with the aftermath of the first book. And then we also get to meet a new character, Alucard, who is also just fabulous. So if you like magic, if you like pirates, if you like interdimensional travel, definitely check this one out. 5 out of 5 stars. I am going to be waiting with bated breath for the third book to come out at the end of February. Then I read Zoo by James Patterson and Michael Ledwidge. I picked this up because I've actually watched the TV show. So I'm doing it in reverse. I watched the TV show first, which this book is based on. I'm going to be potentially controversial. I preferred the show to this book. Although granted, this book actually has a beginning and an ending, and I did find the ending of the conclusion of this book to be really fascinating. I just wish they'd included more hints of the reason that the animals were doing what they were doing throughout the whole book. I mean, the really great thing about this is it's all about the effects of humans on nature and how that in turn affects animals, and yet it's only really in this last chunk that sort of really comes through. I mean, but overall I did enjoy it. It was a fun read. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the premise, in this book, over the course of a short period of time, animals suddenly start turning on humans. So it starts with lions in the local zoo attack and kill one of their keepers, then escape, and then are at large in the city, while at the same time in Botswana, a pride of lions suddenly start attacking tourist camps. And slowly other animals' behaviours begin to change, and animals that have previously been quite loyal to their owners, such as pets, dogs, cats, etc. There is a chimpanzee involved in this book, and insects and all that sort of thing. Slowly their behaviour starts changing and they start attacking humans for what appears to be no reason. And it basically induces a panic state by the time this reaches critical mass, because people can't go outside because they're going to be attacked. So if that sounds like your sort of thing, definitely check it out. It's interesting. I just wish there'd been more of a thread throughout the whole book. Then I read Alice-Miranda at School by Jacqueline Harvey, which is a children's book. I think it's sort of that bracket of kids' books just before middle grade. It is about a little girl called Alice-Miranda Hyton-Smith-Kennington-Jones, and she's about to start boarding school at Winchesterfield Downsford Vale Academy for Proper Young Ladies. And she's 7.5, and she is the youngest student to be admitted into the school, and she is very precocious and just gets herself involved in absolutely everything that's going on, including the strange behaviour of her headmistress, Miss Grimm, who doesn't like interacting with the children in the school. And so she finds herself in a spot of bother because she gets herself on the wrong side of the headmistress, who starts proposing bizarre and frankly unlikely challenges for the 7.5-year-old. However, that is part of the charm of the book, I think. Some people have criticised this because for a 7.5-year-old, Alice-Miranda is very bright and knows exactly what she wants to do and gets her way and can go camping for 5 days on her own, etc. But I think one of the really lovely things about children's books is that characters in these books can really set a tone for kids. Alice-Miranda is sort of the best part of a lot of different kids, and yes, no one is this perfect, but it does give kids something to aim for and something to strive to be, whether it's to be kind or whether it's to be observant or whether it's to be strong in the face of adversity. When you see those traits in characters, it makes you want to emulate them a little bit more, especially when you're a kid. So I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I did really enjoy it. It's a really quick and easy read. There's a ton of books in these series. I was going to be going to a garden party release book launch for the new book in the series, but I can't go now, unfortunately. But I'm still glad that I read it. The last book that I read this month was Dreadnought by April Daniels. This was an e-arc I received from NetGalley. Guys, I was so excited to end the week on this book. This book was really fantastic. I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it. For those of you who aren't familiar, Dreadnought is a book set to be released on January 24th. It is about a world where superheroes exist. Superheroes, supercriminals, and supervillains are just part of the everyday life. And one day, Dreadnought, who is a very, very recognizable figure in this society, is killed. And he's found by Danny Tozer, a transgender girl who tries to help Dreadnought before he dies and is granted his powers as a result. And the offshoot of that is that she gets a body to match what she feels inside. So Danny suddenly has the body of a girl and is ecstatic by that because finally everything feels right to her. And what she has to deal with is how this impacts on everyone else. The revelation with her family is really in parts tough to read because they're not very supportive they're not supportive at all. I'm not going to say they're not supportive of the fact that she wants to stay exactly the way that she is. She also has the superhero aspect of it because she has been granted these super abilities, but she's only 15. So she's too young to join the Legion Pacifica, which is the local superhero group for her area. And yet they do try to include her and try and help her to an extent. But everywhere she goes, she finds both acceptance and she finds prejudice from a lot of different characters. This is an Own Voices book. There were parts of it that made me really angry to read. There are a lot of parts that are very confronting, and there are certain characters that I just absolutely wanted terrible things to happen to because they were just such terrible, terrible people to Danny. And yet she perseveres. So she has her moments of doubt, but she also has these really incredible moments of inner personal strength where she stands up and she finds her voice and she stands up to everything negative that people are saying to her. I've seen a few people say that they wish that there was more backstory on the superhero side of it, but I think this is the first book in a series, and this book really focused on Danny's journey, which I think was really, really important because the superhero stuff can happen in the background. The one thing that I really liked about that was that it was just accepted that there were superheroes and there were super criminals and there were super villains. There was no, oh, are they good? Are they bad? Are they da da da? They just are. And it's just the world that they live in. And I thought that was brilliant because you don't spend so much time questioning it, or I didn't at least, because I'm just like, okay, this is the world that April Daniels has built. There are superheroes here. It meant that the focus was really on Danny and not just the history of all of these superheroes and how they got to be where they were and all that sort of thing. So I love this read. I think it did a really wonderful job of representing transgender characters in books. I can't wait to read a second book. I just love Danny. I thought she was amazing. So that's everything that I read this week. Let me know down in the comments, what have you been reading this week? I can't wait to hear what you have read and enjoyed. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're having a wonderful day, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Thanks for watching.